Hello. Can you all hear me? Testing, testing, testing. Double checking on my end that everything's all good. Perfect. Okay. There we are. Welcome in. Oh, I probably don't have music up on here. There we go. I wonder if this is doubling. Oh, it's probably doubling. There we go. All right. So you can probably hear my, I don't know if this screen, if you can hear my game. Yep. Okay, I fixed it. Don't worry. There we go. It should be taken care of. I forgot that, this is playing through desktop because it's windowed and not a separate game. Okay. Let's see here. I'm just fixing. Okay. That should be good. Let me know if there's any issue. Right now I'm playing the background or the opening music for Lamento. If there's any more issues, please tell me. Please tell me. Okay. So, a little bit of business before we get down into it. One, of course, I'm playing this with my beloved Amoris, but he got called away on a little mission just for the moment, but he will be back and joining us in like an hour or so, maybe an hour and a half or something. Hi, welcome in. I'm also so excited. Let me know if there's any audio issues. I've been struggling with my audio all week. But so I have to lay down a few ground rules for playing Lamento. So I know we're all nervous about playing Nitro games on YouTube with the kind of content that they hold, you know, wink wonk. But I did extensive research. And there are plenty of full playthroughs. I was especially a little more nervous about Lamento than anything else. Just because I'll get into it a little bit more, but the version I'm playing is well, let's just say Nitro doesn't have a good track record in making Lamento super relevant. So yeah. But a lot of what I'm going to be playing, unfortunately, for the final parts of the route, where the majority of the bad ends are, I'm going to have to skip those. Because even if I were to play them, it's like 100% censor screen almost the entire way through. And even with certain, to comply with YouTube standards, I have to turn down the audio, because even sounds can set YouTube off. So I am a full purveyor of bringing you the most uncensored content I can possibly give. But to have any kind of presence on YouTube, I can't go whole ham about it. I still very much have to comply with with YouTube's guidelines. That's why I didn't even, I mean, my primary source of streaming is always going to be YouTube, but I'm not going to even touch Twitch with a 30-foot pole for any Nitro game. Like, that's just not happening. Especially now with how Twitch is being a little much. But okay, so the version that I'm playing, this is very important. The version that I'm playing for this version of Lamento, yeah, this version of Lamento is a fan translated version. So a long time ago, maybe before, well, no, I can't say that. A long time ago, there was a bunch of very lovely and dedicated people who made a fully English translated patch of Lamento themselves. And they made a censored and uncensored version. Even their censored version, I cannot show because it's mainly censoring, you know, but it's not censoring the act. And I have to censor the whole act. Even if it gets a little scandalous, unfortunately, I'll have to probably throw up a censor. God bless them. They are stronger than our troops. They made a very beautiful English patch of the game, or English translation of the game, and they kept to, the original as best as they possibly could. So if there's any errors in translation, or if there's anything, this game is known for being a little glitchy sometimes. There's a list of known glitches that happen just because of how they had to work with what they had. So if there's any glitches or anything like that, it's most of the time all I have to do is God, I wish so bad. I want to clean. See, the thing is, Nitro has fully given up on Lamento. They're never going to release an English patch. So the only way that I can play Lamento is like this. They love slow damage so much. Please release an English of clean dishes. I am begging. But yeah, if there's any issues with the game itself in Lamento, most of the time I just have to shut down the game and then restart it. So the game also has a system though about save scumming, but I kind of need to save scum. So we'll see. We should be fine. But yeah, I'm going to try to remember to save scum a little bit. If you're in the audience and I haven't saved a while, please, if it goes like, I don't know, if you're still here after 30 minutes or so and I forgot to save, you can remind me to save. I actually would prefer a reminder in chat if I don't send up an automatic timer to remind me to save, because this game has a potential of crashing. And it can crash a lot. So far when I've played it, it's been fine. I've run so many tests trying to get Lamento up and running. And it's good. It's fine. We might have some glitchy text here and there, or things that may not 100% work with the UI or everything like that. But I promise, it is still a very worthwhile game. And if you can go through the very interesting process of downloading the English patch of Lamento, I highly recommend it. It is you're going to have to deep dive the old classic way of DeviantArt forums. And if that media is lost to you, goddamn, I feel old. I mean, like, I know I already am, but like, searching through DeviantArt forums for game downloads from Japan was like, that was it, baby. That was it. Okay, that should, oh, one more thing. So Lamento, when we play it, it will, unfortunately, let me go down here. Give me 1 second. So when we play Lamento, I have to, it loads up in a very tiny box. And so actually, let's go to transition here. Oh, yeah, I was testing out my sensor. So this is what you're going to see. This is like, this is just, I have it just in case, but I highly, highly doubt that we're going to get anywhere in this first run. The common route is very long. It's very long. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So, okay. So this is what we're dealing with. All right. Whoop. There we are. Okay. So Lamento, when it originally opens, is this box. It's a very tiny box. And so whenever we play it, it's unfortunately going to have to be in this ratio. There is literally nothing I can do about it. Not even going into the configuration does not help, because it doesn't have any option for changing the ratio. So this is as best as we're gonna get. The other notion is that for me, though, on the other hand, I can tab F to full screen it on my end, but it will not full screen on your end. So see, even if I go into the configurations and settings, there's no settings to make it bigger. That's just how it is. We're gonna have to deal with it. It's gonna be okay, I promise. There we go. Let me fix that. First of all, let's do a little character test. How's the music? Do I need to turn it up? Is my voice okay in comparison? Please let me know if there's any issues. I'm going to be also playing around with my my voice modular and stuff like that, so I can bring you a more immersive experience. Let's just hope that we'll do a little test play here. It's very quiet to me. I don't know if it's loud enough for you. Smallest bit louder? Okay. Teeniest bit? That's as tiny as I can move it up. Voice is fine. I can't hear music. Okay. I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna turn this up as well. Let me know if there's any doubling or anything that you can hear out of my headphones. Okay. And then character voices on. Better? Okay, cool. And it's supposed to play the character voices, but I don't hear it. So I may have to restart the game. Let me know if you hear it. Because I don't hear it at all. Is it just a me thing? It shouldn't be like that. Cannot hear? Yeah, I thought so. Okay. All right. Restart. Yes. Because it should be playing the voices for that. So you can see what I'm working with right now. Lamento is a good and fun game. I promise. I promise. Do you like my cat ears, by the way? I thought it would fitting for playing BL Catboy game. I promise it's so worth it. I promise it's so worth it. There we go. Okay, I thought so. I was like, oh, here we go, restart. So thank you. So yeah, just double checking. Okay. Just to make sure you can hear that. I might turn up the character voices just a little bit. Okay. Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for helping me. Okay. Then we should be all right to continue. Everything looks fine. Okay. All right. So at a later date, Ami will be joining us. My plan for this is that if by some reason YouTube has me take down the Lamento videos. And there's no way to like edit it to coincide with YouTube's guidelines. I have another plan for how I'm gonna produce this, but it probably won't be. It probably might be in video format instead of live, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, and if at any point audio issues, anything like that, remember to tell me. And that should be it. I think we can go ahead and start. Yay! So sorry for all the preamble. I just have to. For the character voices, since my English speakers are primarily, or my chat is primarily English speakers, I'm contemplating on whether if I'm going to do a full voiceover or just let the boys talk, because, you know, obviously all the voice acting is in Japanese. I might do a mixture of both. I hope that will be helpful for the future VOD watchers, and for the people who just want to kind of hear this in the background. And I may do like a mixture, so not everything will be fully voiced, but I might react important bits here and there. Okay, but let's go ahead. You might see a little glitch here in a second. It's okay, I promise. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's okay, Ami. Take your time. We'll see you soon. Even if the world killed you, I would not forget you. I have 2 hands and feet, with 5 digits on each. I can stand and walk on my own 2 feet. A god sang this song. I always love the music of this. His wife was Rebecca, with wings, a tail, and ears. She laid a rainbow egg. But the dazzling rainbow egg reflected too much sunlight, and it made Rebecca avert her eyes. And the egg fell. It hit a cloud and shattered. Rainbow? Gay? In my Catboy PL? Gay people? From inside the egg came a seed that was awoken by Rebecca's song. It bloomed and spread over the garden. Over the ground, sorry. Rebecca sang the song of the beginning. This is the story of the beginning. Please let me know if any issues with the voices. Hi, sweetheart. Thank you for coming in. Please let me know if there's any issues with my voice modulator or anything like that. It was the song of the beginning. It was the song of the beginning being sung. The singing cat conjured a melody along with his words. His voice came like a brook of water, and sometimes swelled like an intense flame. Oh my god, the soundtrack is cracked in this, for real. I'm glad you can join. Cats who passed were stopping in their tracks, enchanted. They forgot the daily clamor and savored that intoxication for just one moment. The strings of the lute were plucked by his nails, crystal clear. The sounds it made poured forth and meshed with the song he sang, overflowing and sparkling around the poet. Cats sat down on the road and listened to the poet. Brilliantly, brilliantly. The earth seemed to fade, and they received the light that gently descended onto them. The remnants of the light drifted, glittering in the air. Kitties. It's kind of like if you think of warrior cats, very much if you think like warrior cats, but make them kemono mimi people. Yeah, it's very there's some similarities there. Voice, light, sound. I said that in a different way. Can fortunate meetings such as these really happen? Can such fluttering hearts truly meet by chance? A blissful smile graced the cat's lips. Let us savor it. Now is the time to share our joy. As the green scenery faded into the sunlight, the poet sang on. It has a fragile beauty before it released to its end. I need to get better at reading. The song of the beginning is about the sadness, courage, and ferocity of the world. Ooh, opening time. Oh shit. Ooh yeah, woo. The song is such a banger. Oh my god. What's all this? What's all this here? It's the white-haired man. Hello, sailor. He's something. You'll find out. All right, I have to talk a little bit over it just to make sure I didn't get copyright stricken or whatever. We should be good though. A world on the brink of death. This world is beautiful because everything is a lie. Because everything will die soon. The forests in which the leaves grow thickly, vividly, the warm light that shines down, the colorful flowers that bloom everywhere, beneath a clear blue sky. All of this is a lie. The world is now attacked by the void. The end is near. So it is beautiful, for things shine their brightest before death. Thunder rent the sky open. An ear-splitting scream echoed through the village. From the sky dark as night, rain poured down to the ground. The cats could only tremble and try to endure. Their ears drew back, their tails drooped listlessly, and their fur stood on end. Lamplight flickered in their rooms, casting creeping shadows on the walls and floors. Sometimes they do spaces in words where I'm just like, why is the space there? But, you know, Can't complain. On the village road, a cat, soaking wet, ran without cease. His quick feet splashed quietly in the water. He said nothing about where he was going and just ran onward. A bag slung over his shoulder absorbed the water and became discolored. It began to droop heavily, even though there wasn't much inside. His wet tail was also heavy. It was rare and unusual to be aware that it even existed, but now he thought about how troublesome it was becoming. The rain kept pounding. It chilled him to the marrow, and he wanted to return home soon to dive into his warm bed and go to sleep. Lightning struck. When the sky shone bright white, the cat running to the village was silhouetted in black. The night moon was shrouded in darkness and could not be seen. The running cat finally reached the house, opened the door, and hurried inside. When he closed the door behind him, the sound of rain and thunder seemed to become distant, empty. The water dripping from his body wet the floor. The cat, Konoe, shook his head, scattering droplets of water to the walls and furniture. Hi, Konoe! The room was dark. Konoe tossed his bag aside, not concerned that it had gotten everything wet. He drew a leaf out of the drawstring bag, which stood by the door. Konoe put the leaf into a small dish on a shelf, wherein a small puddle of water was contained. That's him! That's the guy! He was on the cover! A hazy light spread through the room. It wasn't much, being so dim, but at least it was no longer dark. He wanted to use fire as little as he could. Konoe didn't like using fire often. Instead, he used the guiding leaf. The leaf stored up light from the day moon, and when soaked in water, weakly emitted that light again. On pitch-dark, rainy days like these, the guiding leaves would shine. They guided the cats that lost their way and hence got their name. His home was illuminated with a faint light. If 3 cats his size entered this home, it would be filled to capacity. A small shelf, a pot, and a barrel each for food and water. There were only the bare necessities in this simple home. After he began to feel at ease again, Konoe finally laid down to his bed. The cloth was warm to the touch, and he began to purr instinctively. Konoe removed his shoes and took his sword from his belt, then took off his coat and tossed it to the side. Cats like Konoe, from a race called Ribika, no longer had much in common with their ancestors. Although the Ribika no longer had fur on their bodies like their ancestors did, they retained the need to groom the fur on their ears and tails, and the hair and skin of their arms. Carefully, he licked his damp fur. So yeah, that's where I mean to say it's kind of like warrior cats, where once long ago, the race that we have here, I believe, were actually cats, but they evolved into a more human-like form, but still retaining their cat ears and tails. With his rough tongue acting like a brush, Konoe groomed for a while, still purring. His ears twitched in response to the thunder that occasionally echoed. The tip of his tail was wet and had begun to become a bit matted. Sorry. Using his teeth, he untangled the fur. Then he used his hands to carefully clean his ears. While licking his fingers, Konoe turned his gaze to the window, rain still pouring outside. He'd heard a scream outside earlier. Whose scream was it? This time, someone had probably been eaten. One by one, cats were disappearing. It was not the doing of devils or demons, but of other cats in the village. It had become natural these days. He muttered, trying to fend off those dark thoughts. There was not a thing anyone could do. This was the erosion caused by the void. No one could stop it. Konoe noticed the bag he'd thrown to the floor and began to open it up with his long claws. The bag was wet and now began to shrink, so its contents were difficult to remove. He checked inside. It contained nuts, grass roots, and medicinal herbs he'd obtained when he'd gone out to hunt. Just those kinds of things. Nuts and berries were favorite foods among cats, and their bodies could thrive even without eating for several days. Therefore, there weren't many times a cat felt like a lack of food was troubling. That didn't mean they didn't need to eat some meat, though. But now, hunting for meat was difficult. The forest and the village, Karo, were being attacked by the void. The void. It was such a mysterious phenomenon. Apparently it had begun around the time Konoe was born. A young female cat who had entered the forest to gather herbs had first noticed the void. When she returned to the village, her hand was stained a deep red. Tears falling onto her cut fingers, she said, "I didn't pick the herbs. I didn't touch them. Something like a knife cut my fingers." At first, no one understood what she meant. There was a plant called blade grass, so called because of its long, thin leaves that could cut one's fingers if you were not careful. The cats of Karo thought she had tried to pick blade grass by accident. No one took her seriously. Who could have guessed it would become such a nightmare? Eventually, the other cats began to experience the same thing. Soon, every living thing in the forest became dangerous to touch. Nothing physically seemed off about the forest, but the plants, the birds, the bugs and butterflies, none could be touched, as if they rejected the cats. As if matter itself had been rejected by reality. Cats were rejected by the earth. All breathing things in the forest seemed to no longer be compatible with them. Touching them caused pain and left cuts. Even the fruit they used to eat began to reject them. But it did not happen all at once. Like a sickness that destroyed the body from within, the void slowly crept from the edges into the center of the country of Sisa, cornering the cats. The void had not reached the center yet, but the area where Konoe was located was breathing its last breaths. All he could do was search the forest for places untouched by the void to try and find some food. Mice and birds were now dangerous and constantly moving. Maybe escaping from a forest that had already fallen to the void. Cats who attacked them were paralyzed with pain. Some even died. The food stores soon began to run out. What could starving cats eat? Konoe broke that train of thought and regarded the things he'd gathered, then tossed them into a storage pot. He wasn't hungry, but he was thirsty, so Konoe moved to the barrel of water. Yeah, you sure will be thirsty, my guy. All right. Just sip a break. All right. I'm thirsty too. He opened it up, dipped his head down, and lapped up some water. Once he was done, Konoe covered the barrel again and began to stretch. His eyelids felt heavy. Being out in the rain this long would probably make him sick. He should rest. Konoe wiped his lips and returned to bed. Konoe finished grooming and curled up under the blanket. He breathed in the familiar scent of home and his eyelids closed. His tail curled around his body. For a moment, a scream echoed in his head, but he dismissed the thought. Konoe huddled down alone, but he wasn't lonely. In fact, he was used to the solitude. Today was cold. Maybe tomorrow would be bright and warm, and he could dry off. With these thoughts in mind, Konoe fell asleep. Just like he wanted, the next day was warm. Look at these early 2000s graphics. I love that sometimes Lamento looks like a PS2 game. He woke up, stretched out, and began to groom himself. Then he took his wet bag and coat and hung them up to dry in the light of the day's moon. He put on his clothes, picked up a nut to eat, and went outside to begin his daily routine by inspecting his territory. Karo! That's where we are. This music bumping. On the southwest side of Sisa was the village named Karo. I know. The male cats here were raised from birth to be strong fighters. But after the arrival of the void, just surviving took all of their strength. The village seemed silent and dead. There were homes here and there, but it was rare to see cats outside. They kept to themselves. Konoe finished looking over his territory and returned home. By then, the moon of light had already begun to set. So as you'll notice, dear viewers, they do not have what you call a sun. It is the day moon and the night moon. They are both intrinsic. Oh, and they explain it too. Sisa did not have a sun, just a moon of light and a moon of shadow. No one really knew why. It had been this way since the dawn of the Rebican race. According to a legend, the sun sank into the sea long ago. Sisa, where the Rebica lived, was surrounded on all sides by a sea that was colored golden, supposedly colored by the fallen sun. Instead of a sun, they now had two moons, the moon of shadow and the moon of light. From the west, the moon of light rose and shone brightest at noon, while the moon of shadow rose from the east to look over the earth after dark. So it had been passed down from generation to generation. When the sun fell into the sea, the world was shrouded in darkness. The wife of our god divided the moon in two so that it would always shine down on our world. Toucan was said to be the god who shaped this world. It was said that he was named so because he walked on legs like two sticks. See, just like sometimes called solid leg. It's just like how in warrior cats they're called two legs. So it's very similar. The name of the race, the Rebica, came from the name of this god's wife, who was said to have the shape of a cat. The Rebica knew what cats looked like from reading the ancient texts left by toucans. Despite the difference in size, their ears and tail were the same. And so the Rebica called one another cats. But what toucan looked like was something long forgotten. Only the name gave the cats a clue as to what he could look like. Konoe headed towards the village with the light of dusk warm on his back. Today, Tokino was supposed to come by. He was a peddler cat from Sisa's largest town, Nansen. About the same age as Konoe, Tokino helped his father with his work. His mother, however, had died shortly after she gave birth to him. Konoe's parents were also deceased. His father, before he was even born, and his mother passed of illness when she was young. He didn't have a close relationship with the other village cats, but that was fine by him. He hated the cats of this village. No one helped anyone else. Everyone only looked out for their own interests. But he could live alone. So far, he didn't need the help of any other cats. And even when faced with death, Konoe didn't think he'd want it. But Tokino was different. Even when they first met, they got along well, as odd as that was to him. Tokino was carefree and easygoing, but Konoe was just the opposite. Maybe that could work out. Tokino always shared stories about Nansen, and Konoe, who never left Kato, enjoys these stories. Wasn't he supposed to arrive soon? Konoe quickened his pace. Sorry. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind him, straightforward and severe. It was a familiar voice. Konoe had a bad feeling about it. He tried to ignore it at first, but stopped when he heard a low growl. It would become troublesome. When he looked around, he saw the male cat he suspected. It was Shin. Silhouetted black against the evening moon. The other cat lowered his ears aggressively. Keep telling you this is my territory. Alright, NPC. Take a back seat, man. Territory. Konoe made his disdain for that term quite clear. Shin and Konoe's territories overlapped a bit. Shin and Konoe had fought over territory before. Sure, their territories overlapped, but it was to such a small degree that Konoe considered it trivial. Quarrels like these were not uncommon. Despite the hunger, the cat's fighting spirit remained alive and well. Or maybe it was exactly that hunger that made them so on edge. Shin narrowed his eyes, which gleamed with delight. The need to divert one's mind was disguised as a territorial dispute. It was rather depressing. Come to think of it, he always considered it that way. Besides, Tokino was probably waiting for him at the village entrance. I love Konoe so much. He's such like a bro. I am just trying to survive. Please take a back seat. Just leave me alone. Then just take it. It doesn't matter to me. Shin growled from in the depths of his throat. Huh. Shin threw himself at Konoe. Konoe jumped back quickly and drew his sword. Shin's blade aimed several stabs at Konoe's throat, but Konoe blocked these blows. While parrying Shin's blade with his own, Konoe gathered power at the left side of his body, and then he lashed his left hand out to claw at Shin's chest. Sharp fingernails tore Shin's clothes as he staggered. This gave Konoe a chance to aim for one of Shin's arms, the one that held the knife. But right at the last second, Shin pulled away and kicked up his leg. Both of them separated, opening up some distance between them. The air between the two of them was scorching hot with tension. Shin shouted with intense murderous intent. Yes, I thought it said intense twice. And the two of them stared each other down, growling. Before he knew it, Konoe's ears folded back, the hair on his body stood on end, and his pupils contracted to needle-like slits. In times of extreme agitation, the pupils of Rebecca narrowed. It was impossible to lie with eyes like that, no matter how much a cat may pretend to be calm. Shin cried out again and charged forward at Konoe. Konoe bared his fangs and brandished his sword. He dropped down low to avoid an attack, feeling a sharp wind at his cheek. I like how the cards move. It's like, wee! At the same time, he twisted and aimed a kick at Shin's lower body. Shin noted his movement and began to shift, but Konoe was able to make his heel connect with Shin's side. Shin lost his balance and Konoe pushed off from the ground, pouncing. He kicked off the trunk of a tree to accelerate further, then pushed off towards Shin. Shin tried to stand up and jump back, but within another instant, Konoe's shadow was over him. Shin was caught with a cloud of dust kicked up when he fell. Konoe pressed his struggling body down by pushing a knee against his chest, then dug his claws into Shin's shoulder and bared his fangs. In his right hand, Konoe brandished his sword. A frightened look entered Shin's eyes. Konoe stabbed his sword into the ground, right beside Shin's face. Shin's eyes opened wide. His mouth opened and closed voicelessly several times. Konoe brought his face close enough to feel the downy fur of his opponent's ears and stared into Shin's eyes. Do you still want to fight? That intense aggression of Shin's was now gone. His eyes were open and his pupils dilated wide. So I say Shin sometimes because of how I believe that's how the original was, but they just translated it to Sin, but I could be wrong. Konoe stood up and withdrew his sword from the ground. Shin panicked and stood up, his tail between his legs and his ears low. Konoe began to walk away. He needed to hurry to get to the village entrance. Shit, that's what you get with orphans. Konoe had been walking, but now stopped in his tracks. Those words he heard lit a flame somewhere in his heart. Why did this guy need to bring up trivial things like this? Konoe turned, pulled out his sword, and threw it. It was stuck in the earth near the fallen Shin's feet, and a miserable scream echoed. Shin curled his tail between his legs and fled when he heard Konoe's strong tone. Once he saw that Shin's figure was leaving for sure this time, Konoe walked off with a brisk pace. A rough breath escaped, filled with pent-up anger. Orphans. What a trivial thing. When other cats talked about it, it didn't matter. Still, when other cats pointed it out, Konoe felt angry. He had respected his parents over anyone else. Konoe had a memory from when he was young, when his mother told him, "You are a precious child of this earth, and you are loved." But what was love? Konoe couldn't answer it. Something like that didn't seem real to him. It seemed important, despite being impossible to understand. Without pausing his feet, Konoe surveyed his surroundings. The PS2 graphics. No matter how much noise he'd made, no other cats had exited their homes. It was normal in Kato. Battles and their victims. Maybe some of them, even though it was good that other cats died. Yes, that is a translation. Because maybe that way they could overcome the starvation just a little longer. He's saying maybe it was good that some of them were victims, is what that line was supposed to be. The evening moon dyed the sky red. Something stirred inside him. Maybe something exciting would come to pass. So he thought. Oh, sorry. Take a little sip at an inopportune time. On his way to the village entrance, he stopped. Another territorial dispute was taking place. 3 cats were fighting, 2 versus 1. Maybe 2 of them were Tolga and Sangha. His eyes narrowed unintentionally. Sangha and Tolga. They fought in tandem, one singing cat and the other the fighting cat, respectively. The Tolga's fighting abilities were nothing unusual. Many of the cattle cats were Tolga. But the Sangha's power were decided from the moment they were brought into the world. Only those with innate power could develop into a Sangha. The role of the Sangha was support the Tolga through a special song, and Sangha. There were many kinds, those who sang or played musical instruments, or those who gave out the melody from their very bodies. That gave strength to a Tolga with a Sangha and without one. The difference was vast. Such a scene was now unfolding before Konoe's eyes. He had heard rumors of it in Kato, but this was the first time he'd actually seen it in action. The Tolga brandished his sword, and the Sangha clasped his hands in front of his chest, closing his eyes. The opposing Tolga shuddered, knowing he should be afraid. Desperate, the foe raised his voice in a cry and rushed towards the Sangha. If the Sangha was killed, the chances of winning became greater. The support of a Sangha was too great of a threat. While the Tolga brandished his blade, the Sangha opened his eyes. A singing voice sounded. No, rather than a voice, it was a sound that resounded within his ears. The body of the Sangha shone brightly, and light flowed to the Tolga. The Tolga received this song and was gone within another moment. No, he was not gone. When Konoe finally realized it, the Tolga had already buried his sword deep into the chest of his opponent. It all happened in a split second. The cat that was pierced by the sword fell to the ground, his face contorted with pain. Such was the power of the Sangha. Cats were usually agile on their feet, but the speed was incredible. Having a Sangha around meant victory or defeat. The Sangha and Tolga pair left without even casting another glance at the dead cat. Feeling like he was trapped in a dream, Konoe remembered to exhale. His heart beat like a drum, his head felt hot. Quiet excitement whirled within his body. He wondered what it was like to receive power from a Sangha song. After a moment, he became aware that his tail was stiff and puffed out. Once they left, it's my home. Once they left, there was only dead silence. The victim's breath had been cut short with just one blow. The smell of blood hung in the air. Sooner or later, this body would be collected as a sacrifice, as food. Konoe was hesitant about just leaving it there. He approached the corpse. Its face was frozen in a fearful expression. It was the look of a person who did not want to die. Konoe put his hands on both sides of the body and lifted it up. He tried to drag it to the forest, but stopped. There was another person here. Konoe clicked his tongue. A shadow hid in the bushes of the forest. Maybe it wasn't alive. When he sniffed, he smelled a faint but horribly disgusting odor. And the shadowy corpse had a faint puddle of liquid around it, like a puddle of rain. Konoe lowered his eyebrows. The void attacked him. The corpse could not return to Earth. The body had decayed but could not melt into the earth, so all it could do was build up on top of the dirt. And just outward appearances were nothing when trying to find the traces of the void. Konoe put the corpse he was holding in another place, away from there. When he looked at the corpse, he recalled the scream from last night. Of course, this cat didn't want to die, but still, death seemed like a form of salvation now. At least, it was better than being a sacrifice. Konoe turned his back and began to run. Some time had passed, so he needed to hurry to the village entrance. Konoe saw a lonely shadow standing at the side of the entrance to the village and quickened his pace. The cat in profile had heavy baggage at his feet and was looking up at the sky. It was definitely Tokino. Tokino heard his footsteps and raised his ears, a smile crossing his face. Konoe! Konoe! Yay! Oh, sorry, hold on 1 second. I got an itch. Ah, my nose. Ugh. Okay. Oh, sorry. My nose was bothering me so much. It's Tokino! So if you haven't noticed before, and if you're any particular fan, the artist who does Usapri also does the art for Lamento, and also did the art for Takana Nochi. I don't know if there was any other ones, but it was definitely those two. Sorry to keep you waiting. Oh, that was Konoe. No problem. It's been around Moon, right? You seem well. You too. Konoe was actually more glad than he expected to be. He didn't know exactly why, but Tokino's bright demeanor made him smile. In this world, methods to count the dates were passed down from the time of toucans. In the time between the rise of the moon of light and setting of the moon of shadow was 1 day. Yes, I read that. 7 days were called a 7 moon, and 30 cycles made a round moon. Alright, so a month in coinciding with a full moon, round moon, and then 7 days, 7 moon, which is, no, not even close to a half moon. It's like a still crescent. No one knew just why the 7th and 13th day were chosen, but because it was knowledge from the toucans, no one argued with it. Tokino pushed lightly against his shoulder. Konoe affectionately returned the greeting. Tokino let out a small, pleased purr, but turned inquisitive. Konoe, did something happen? Kind of. Before I got here. Were you fighting? Some guy just picked a fight with me over territory. Territory, huh? Tokino muttered with a distant look. Nansen, where Tokino lived, was Cisa's most prosperous city. Diplomacy with other lands was limited thanks to the enormous coral reef that surrounded Cisa. As a result, Cisa developed independently. Even so, Dansen was always taking in visitors, with cats passing in and out day and night. Hence, the cats of Dansen were not very territorial. Of course you won, right, Konoe? Yeah. Are you hurt? I'm alright. I see. That's good to hear. Tokino smiled and laughed, giving a teasing shrug. Even if you had gotten hurt, Konoe, it'd be okay, because I got lots of medicines. Are you trying to sell me something? Oh my. Well, maybe. Tokino bent down and reached into the heavy luggage near his feet. It was a large, durable woven basket which he could hang over his shoulder on a stick. From food to medicine, a variety of things were packed in there. At first glance, Tokino had a tinier build than Konoe, but after a closer look, one could see that Tokino's arms, shoulders, and hands were rougher and stronger than Konoe's. Oh my god, tell me more. It was probably life as a peddler that shaped him this way. But today, Tokino seemed tired. The weight of the basket made him stagger and fatigue showed on his face. You're staggering. Yeah. There's a festival coming up in Ransen and we've been busy with preparations. Still, whoa! Tokino fell on his backside before he could finish speaking. The heavy basket he was carrying made a loud thud. Here we go. Tokino scratched his head with a wry smile. Konoe smiled at the situation. He figured he'd just take the basket from Tokino. It was okay. He was having fun now. Konoe grasped the pole of the basket and turned it around. Tokino stood up in a hurry, dusted off his bottom, and shook his head in a panic. Konoe, it's fine. I'm sorry about that. You're tired, aren't you? But it's heavy, and I'm used to it. Please don't worry. It's kind of unreasonable not to worry about it, after seeing you fall down like that right in front of me. Tokino's eyebrows lowered as if in apology. Konoe hefted the basket onto his shoulder. I felt like his body might fall. His ears turned down and he looked embarrassed. Then Konoe extended 3 fingers in front of Tokino. This many. This many... what? Tokino asked. He blinked several times, confused. 3 of them. 3 of what? Creams. Ah! I haven't saved! Thank you, thank you! Perfect, I see, I knew I'd forget. Ah, that's what you mean. Tokino raised his tail, his eyes sparkling with happiness, and nodded. Kuyums were a type of nut-like sweet and sour fruit. They were popular among the Ripika. Konoe loved them. So, since Tokino didn't want him to just carry that basket, Konoe decided to make a trade. Hey, even if you don't do that, don't I always bring you a gift? It's in return for the basket. An excuse, huh? You sure do put it bluntly. When you fell down a few minutes ago, are you okay? Me? I'm fine. Very much alive. Tokino stomped his feet on the ground and let out a laugh. Konoe gave him a teasing smile in return. Do you want me to carry you on my back next? Huh? Tokino's eyes widened, an amusing expression. It made Konoe turn away to hide his laughter. Hey, you. You can laugh at that, it's fine. He does look like Otoya, doesn't he? That's where you could really tell the artist style from this, because I'm like, oh my god, hey. If he was a little redder, he'd just like Otoya. Tokino seemed to be offended, but came around immediately. Konoe carried the basket steadily, but it was definitely heavy. Even so, he talked with Tokino the whole time they walked. They walked home. Konoe spoke with Tokino about various things while swishing his tail in a relaxed manner. Tokino carried all kinds of food and drink in his basket to be sold, along with some more unusual wares. Konoe pulled out a kuim, dried fruits and herbs. He pulled all these things into a bowl and ground them together with a pestle. Konoe presented Tokino the bowl. Try some. This powder? I won't stop you if you want to lick from the bowl. Just kidding. Let's eat. Tokino picked up some of the admittedly unappetizing powder with his fingers and licked it off. At first he looked stern, but his eyes suddenly sparkled. Oh, delicious! It tastes sweet and sour. Mixing the grass in gives it a sour taste. When you dry it like you're eating now, the end result is surprisingly good. While he spoke, Konoe also gathered some with his fingers and licked it up. A somewhat sour taste spread through his mouth. Huh? Grass and fruit mixed together? Never heard of that before. You know a lot, huh? Well, I occasionally try various things. I see. Talking about other things all the while they ate. As usual, Tokino had plenty of interesting stories to share, but one topic in particular began to concern Konoe. Recently, monsters and demons seem to have appeared in the forests around Nansen. Are you going home? No need to worry. There haven't been any reports of attacks, and since the stories have been passed between the peddlers, they've established some safe routes. Even so, it's best to be careful. Bandits might still appear. Even though Tokino was smiling, Konoe felt uneasy. Tokino prepared to leave before it got too late. He was supposed to be leaving Kado before midnight. A deal's a deal. Tokino handed Konoe 4 small red kuims before leaving the house. Hey, this was one too many. The last one is a gift from the heart. Next time, I'll bring more. No, it's fine. These were supposed to be a reward for carrying the basket anyway. Tokino just laughed and shrugged it off. I get it. You're stubborn. I don't want to hear that from you. I see. Oh, yeah. Tokino seemed to have remembered something and lowered the basket, pulling out something from inside. Yeah, here, take this. He held out a red flower known as the sekiyami. You like the scent of these, right? They just bloomed on the way over here, so I picked one. He's so pouty. I don't really like him that much. Konoe muttered and turned his face away, but his tail shook happily. Your tail doesn't lie. Here. I love how they drag Konoe, like, the image of him down a little bit because he, like, hesitantly takes it. It's so cute. Konoe took the flower reluctantly, and Tokino shouldered his basket again. Then I'll see you later. Be careful not to get sick or hurt. You be careful on the way back too. Yeah. Konoe raised his tail, waving goodbye, and Tokino disappeared into the night. While he watched his friends back, Konoe felt a sense of fulfillment. Meeting Tokino was always like this, but at the same time, he felt a little anxious. Konoe had a bad feeling, like a premonition. He tossed one of the kuims that he had gotten from Tokino into his mouth and savored the flavor. First, sweetness that spread through his mouth, followed by sourness. Konoe looked to the rest of the fruit, then to the sky. High above, the moon of shadow shone its cool blue light, and it poured over him. Taking a sip. Konoe started to head back inside his house, but a light caught his eye. A flame flickered in the quiet village. In front of a certain home, a torch was placed. Seeing it, Konoe remembered the scream from last night. 2 cats would be sacrificed today. That was the house of one of the victims. It was the last resort for the cats who suffered from hunger because of the void. In the present situation where food was not widespread, it wasn't unusual to see dead bodies. Under normal circumstances, corpses would be buried with respect. But in the instinct to survive, justified brutality. And that was how the cats of the village were now. For cats starving with hunger, a body was food. It was only flesh from which a soul had already left. However, it wasn't every day that someone died. If they ran out of corpses to eat, the next attack would be named at living bodies. The old cats were the first to go. Next were the women and children who were weaker. Some time ago, Kato had fallen into this hellish nightmare. The number of females and children decreased dramatically. An epidemic had spread amongst the female cats, the sickness. The high emergence rate and mortality of the disease had led to a sharp decrease in their population. Now there was not even a single female in Kato. So, I like I like this even in the funny context of just like, no women allowed in my BL. Like, women, get out. It is time for boy X boy. Don't like, don't read. But I do genuinely appreciate the lore reason for why they explained how there's a lack of women in the world. To explain their homosexuality. It is a little funny, but it's also interesting lore-wise. I find it interesting that they even like bothered to include it, you know. I thought that was nice. That was fun. In order to manage the situation, the leader of Kato had made a decision. The lore is very good. Every third moon, or if starvation was severe enough, every second moon, a sacrifice would be chosen. Out of necessity, the village chose a sacrificial cat in order to fill up the bellies of the cats. This is not something limited to just Kato. It seemed to be performed in other villages as well, but it was not mandatory to eat the sacrifice. A cat will eat what it wants to eat. The practice was worthy of disdain, and of course there were never any volunteers. Some cats couldn't take such a cruel decision and thought about fleeing the village. However, beyond the southern forest there was a high cliff, and the void consumed the forest to the north. It was difficult to leave the village, so everyone lived in fright, wondering if they would be the next sacrifice. Two shadows stood in front of the house with a burning torch. Most likely, one of these two cats would be the sacrifice. The other may have been of close relation to the first. They were separating. Tonight was the night before his death. Konoe began to think while he watched the appearance of the two solemn cats. When he was chosen as a sacrifice himself, what would happen? What would he do? He was alone. No one would grieve over him. His mother had died and had barely managed to return to the earth without being eaten by other cats. But when she succumbed to her illness, no one extended a helping hand. Konoe was young then, but he remembered it well. At that time, things were already beginning to become harsh in the village, so it might have been their only choice. But Konoe was still unable to forgive them. He could not forget the eyes of the cats who looked down on his mother as if she were a nuisance who needed to hurry up and die. But he only felt it slightly. Konoe didn't have any parents or a spouse. He could be eaten without any impact on the other members of the village. Konoe could be chosen soon. At that time, he wondered if they would eat him quietly. Would they quietly crush him between their jaws and fangs, his bones, flesh, eyes, ears, everything? No. His soft voice cracked from the depths of his throat. He hated it. Konoe refused to become a sacrifice for people he hated. He could live alone. He already lived by himself. Konoe was already alone. But what if there was someone who wanted to help? Not to just satisfy someone, but to help. Could he be sacrificed? If there was actually someone Konoe thought he'd want to help, would he think it'd be okay if I died for them? Oh, would he think it'd be okay if I died for them? What kind of feeling was that? It's just a trivial thing. Konoe learning how to have feelings. It's okay, baby. Konoe broke off the thought that had begun to wander. He He became aware that his tail's fur was standing on end. There was no use in thinking about a thing that wasn't going to happen. All Konoe could do was struggle to live through tomorrow. He could not afford to empathize with the sorrow of others, so the one he sympathized with was no one. There was a thread of sadness that had begun to twine around his heart. The feelings of the two cats surged through him, and Konoe's knees buckled. Konoe had always been that way. He had felt it yesterday during his quarrel with Shin. For some reason, his heart occasionally empathized with the hearts of others. Konoe, it's normal to have empathy. Or sympathy for that matter. It's something, I think we have something a little bit different here, but that's so funny out of context where he's like, occasionally he feels bad for other people. If he had to put it in words, he would say it felt as though water was flowing into his heart. It was not a comfortable thing at all. There were rarely good feelings either. Negative feelings were more common and sometimes very strong. When it happened, Konoe felt like he was ruled by the emotions of others. It was painful and unpleasant. Guys, don't worry, he's an empath. He understands. He's an empath. Therefore, Konoe usually controlled his heart and tried not to empathize with others. If he lived alone, then he wouldn't suffer. Konoe turned his face away from the torch and headed home. Oh, our first choice. Oh my god. Okay, I know what to do here, but so there we go. So we are going to go. I forgot to mention whose route we're gonna start with. So the best thing to do, personally, if we're gonna do an entire run through, the way you should usually go through Lamento, of course you can do whatever route you want, but Lamento, unlike other Nitro games, is a point-based system. So all the answers, almost all the answers, correlate to points. So to get on somebody's specific route, you have to accumulate enough points to be on that route. If it's a tie, I think it goes to somebody, but I don't think there's actually a real way to tie in the common route. I think it's very specific the way they set it up. But to start with, we're going to go down Rise route. Rai, my favorite. I love Rai so much. But in the way to play Lamento, of course you can play however way you want, but it is recommended to start with Rise route first. Because of how the other routes will spoil. Yay! Because how other routes spoils Rise route. Not like immensely. Yeah, we're gonna go down Rise route. They don't this stream is just for you, Resin. But the other routes will spoil Rise route. Not immensely, but enough to be like if you don't know the context, it's not a big deal, but it's still like, it's highly recommended to do Rise route first. So we're going to do Rise route first, and then you're supposed to go Rise route, Asato's route, and then Bardo's route. So yeah, we're gonna head towards Rai, and I'm gonna follow a walkthrough for this just to make sure. So excuse me while I check out my guide. Okay. Going on. There we go. Okay. So going with Rise route, we have to think about the sacrifice. Did I save? I did. I wish that this had more saves. There's only 2 pages. Those are my tests. But I can delete them later. It's fine. But there should be. I wish there was more. save slots. Honestly, we're going to be save scumming the shit out of this. Yeah, okay. First, choice save. Okay. So for Rise route, we're going to think about the sacrifice. Oh, I realized my voice modulator was on that whole time. Whoopsies. The crackling sound of the torch annoyed him. It wasn't that loud, but Keiju was aware of many things today. It was an important day, a hateful day. In the presence of the other cat, Naki, he felt like he was already being torn apart. All that was said some time ago was the word, why? He found it hard to think of anything else to say. Don't make such a face, Keiju. Naki muttered in an unexpectedly calm voice. Naki reached his hand out toward Keiju's wilting ears. His body trembled subtly. This was the last day he would feel Naki's thin fingers, and after today, he would never be touched by his hand again. He felt like a kid again. His heart wavered. Why? All the other sacrifice cats also thought of it like this. I don't think I'm any different. I know that, but still... Why? What a ridiculous law. Keiju understood that the situation was serious and something had to be done. But endorsing cannibalism was just insane. Was the world driven to such madness now? It felt like his body was being torn apart from the inside. Keiju felt like he was going mad. He put his hand on Naki's cheek and slowly traced down his neck to his shoulders and finally his chest. Everything that embodied his beloved Naki would be defiled by the bellies of the other cats. How could he let such a thing happen? It's really a tragedy if you think about it, to have to resort to starvation in such a matter. Yeah, Lamento's sad. Sad, y'all. To have to resort to eating each other to survive, and to have this law of sacrifices, and the way that it's so widely common nowadays. But I mean, it's just tragic. It's not of course it's not like they're doing this because they want to. It's just it's hard out here for a cat. Everyone is suffering. You're no exception. Naki murmured. Keiju averted his eyes, knowing this was true. More and more, Keiju gave himself over to sorrow. It became unbearable, and Keiju hugged Naki with all of his might. He is mine. He is mine and mine alone. Please, somebody help. I want to take Naki away from here. I want to go to a place far away, beyond this earth. This was what he wished from. This is what he wished from the bottom of his heart. Keiju, it hurts. Keiju was startled back to reality by Naki's strained voice, and he loosened his grip, noticing that his fingernails had dug into Naki's shoulder. Sorry. Panicking, he soothed the wound with his tongue. Naki only purred softly and turned his gaze to Keiju. Hey, Keiju? I only have one request.
頼み?
A request? Keiju stopped licking the wound and looked at Naki.
そう。これだけはどうしても刑事じゃなきゃダメなんだ。
Oh, pain! Oh, pain! Oh! Do you love me? Do you love me? I can only be parted from this world if it's you. Only by you. Oh, pain. Yes. If it's not Keiju, I won't let it be done. Naki's tail was shaking. His eyes were full of strong will, so very unlike Keiju's, which were on the verge of bursting into tears.
もう明日にはみんなに食べられてしまうだろう。だから。
By tomorrow, I will already have been eaten by everyone, so. Naki smiled and gently touched Keiju's cheek. The tip of his thin finger moved inwards from his cheek and reached his lips, then pressed them open and pushed into Keiju's mouth. Oh!
Naki!
Surprised, Keiju took his hand. For the first time, Naki seemed like he was going to weep. He bit his trembling lip.
本当は不平等だから掟を破ることになるけど、でも
Listen, y'all.
一番最初に食べてほしいんだ。
It's not as fun as you think, unfortunately. I was thinking about it. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't remember having to bring up a censor bar for this because I don't think it's what it's setting up to be. It's not. Unfortunately. Pain. It's just a lot of pain. The Naki parted his lips to say, I know it'd be against the rules, but I want Keiju to be the first to eat.
Naki, 何言って?
Naki, what did you just say?
本当は全部がいい。けどそうしたら刑事がみんなに責められるだろう。
Gotta eat my fucking
そんな
hands.
の嫌だから。だから。
In truth, I want you to eat all of me, but then won't everyone blame you? I don't want that, so... Naki shut his mouth as if holding something back, then rolled up his sleeve and presented his snow-white arm.
ほら、ここ。一番柔らかくて食べやすいとこ。ここ。食べてほしい。
Cannibalism as love, baby.
多分大丈夫だと思うから。
I love cannibalism as a metaphor for love. This is insane. To truly, oh my god, I love Lamento so much. To truly find your love in the act of, like, in fiction and in literary devices, the act of eating what you love and devouring them to have them, like the notion of having them to forever be within you, is such a beautiful literary device. It's my favorite every time, and that method is like real in Lamento and in Sweet Pool as well. But Sweet Pool is like its own beast. I keep forgetting to turn off my little thing when I'm talking normally. Whoopsies. Here is where the meat is most tender. I want you to eat here. If you do that much, I think I'll be okay.
何言って。
What are you even saying? Keiju was speechless. He didn't know what to say to Naki and shook his head. Eat this? Now?
Naki, そんなこと。
Naki, such a thing.
食べてよ。
Eat! Naki suddenly hissed, his voice a desperate whisper. The hair on Keiju's tail stood up at the sound. Naki had the air of a demon, like he was possessed.
嫌なんだ。本当は僕だって。だけど逆らえない。逃げたってきっと生きられない。どうせ死ぬんだ。
Truly,
せめて
it's awful for me too, but I won't survive if I run. Either way, I will die. So at the very least. Naki's eyes filled with tears.
刑事だって腹減ってるだろう。少しでも足しにしてよ。それで僕を刑事の中に留めておいてほしい。ほんの一かけらの血と肉でいいんだ。
You're starving, Keiju. I may sustain you, if only a little, and I'll stay with you. I want to become one with you. My flesh, my blood. Naki choked on his words and began to cry, his shoulders shaking. Keiju felt like he was going mad. Why? Only that word resounded in Keiju's head. Hunger did not matter. Such a thing was not a problem. He just wanted to be with Naki. Why? However, it was the wish of his most beloved friend. Oh, friend. Is that what we're saying? Okay. Friend. Sure. Sure. His last wish. Tears overflowed from Keiju's eyes as he took Naki's arm. His tears obstructed most of his vision. Naki's hair shone brilliantly in the light of the torch. Keiju found it beautiful. He gently licked at the white skin, careful not to cause the smallest bit of pain. Naki gently touched his head with his other claw. With his other hand. Whoops.
痛い方がいいんだ。
No need to be careful. It should be painful. Keiju's feelings seemed to have built up to the point that they would burst from his chest. He didn't know what to say. All Keiju could do was to stop licking while shedding tears. Keiju bared his fangs and sank them into Naki's arm. Naki's body quivered. A stifled whimper escaped his mouth. His tail bristled and stood stiff between his legs. Keiju's fangs dug into the soft, fair skin with a tearing noise. The elasticity of Naki's skin gave out. Blood flowed into his mouth. It was so sweet. He wanted to weep. This was the taste of Naki's blood. It was the taste of his beloved cat's blood. Even the smell of iron was sweet. Nausea rose in his throat, but he felt neither surprise nor upset. Keiju firmly held Naki's trembling body. He continued to bite harder. Keiju granted Naki his wish by piercing him with his fangs, smearing him with tears and blood and chewing his soft flesh. Y'all have fun? Hey, guess what, everyone? Lamento's sad. Konoe returned home sometime after midnight. Sleep did not come to him easily when he went to bed, and his thoughts drifted for a while. Sorry. Good morning. Do you want to be depressed? Wake up, everyone. It's time to be sad. Soon he fell asleep without noticing and had a dream. Konoe woke up in a mysterious place. Various colors of light intersected. He felt as though his body was transparent and floating in water. His tail swayed lightly. He heard music but couldn't tell where it was coming from. It was both near and far. It enveloped him like a comfortable sleep, and he drifted off. At this time, Konoe was so terribly defenseless. He thought he'd melt and become one with the air. When he started to think about this, he began to hear, in the midst of the distant music, the sound of a beating heart. Thump, thump. It sounded like the beating of his own heart. Where was he? Where was he drifting? Suddenly his vision was painted green. The green light surrounded him, and he struggled to break free. Konoe felt something coil around his ankle. It was cold, thin, and smooth. Before he could be... Oh, I remember this bit. Hold on. No. Give me 1 second. Konoe felt something coil around his ankle. It was cold, thin, and smooth. Before he could be certain of what it was, it forcefully started to climb up his body. Konoe felt a flash of resentment and tried to stop the coiling thing with his hand, but he could not. It easily glided over his chest and wound itself around his neck. Little by little, it tightened around his throat, as if it enjoyed the feeling of squeezing tightly onto his flesh. Konoe was choking. He recklessly tried to scratch at it with his claws. Something broke and fell. Konoe's eyes rolled about desperately. A green scale had fallen on the translucent floor. Then he saw the edge of whatever was coiling around him. This thing, a serpent? Do you feel it? A voice suddenly echoed in his head. Konoe felt a wet, cool touch against his cheek. The snake's head was right beside his face. Its sharp eyes stared at him. Its tongue, red as blood, flickered. The voice kept sounding in his head. Let it go. I hope you can hear it. There's that voice in the background. Do you feel it? Overflowing from my scales, my tongue, my eyes, my heartbeat, my existence. Do you feel it? Yes, existence. Answer me. What am I to you? What do you feel? Even if asked that, it was difficult to think when it hurt to breathe. Konoe struggled, his hands clawing at the snake's scales and his feet kicking wildly, all in vain. Answer me. The snake demanded it from him still. Its coils did not loosen. Konoe tried to cling onto consciousness. Oh! Another one! Okay, so... think about the sacrifice. A joyful impulse. Hee hee hee. Konoe could make no sound. He only vaguely imagined his answer. The snake suddenly loosened its grip on his throat. Had it read his thoughts? Konoe fell down and coughed intensely. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're fine. We're fine. It hurt. Even though he was released, the feeling of being strangled wouldn't go away. On the contrary, it seemed like the grip on his throat kept tightening. It was like it was trying to squeeze into nothingness. The green snake slid off his back. It seemed to be laughing at him as it raised its head in the shape of a sickle. Does it hurt? You're suffering, aren't you? You're so afraid. The snake opened its mouth wide, revealing 2 ferocious fangs. The snake approached, laughing. Konoe tried to escape by kicking off the ground, but he couldn't move his body. Saliva dripped from the fangs, and laughter echoed in the depths of Konoe's mind. The tightness around his neck was still there. He couldn't breathe any longer. His vision grew hazy. It was useless. Okay. So hey, listen, I know we don't get into anything spicy until like way later. But I just want to be careful just in case, because things happen with said glowy bits, said figments there. Things can happen, and I just want to make sure I'm careful, because it's also been a long time since I've played Lamento. So, and the guide doesn't tell me, it just tells me answers. It doesn't tell me what happens after the answers. So I just need to be careful. Konoe jumped out of bed. Ooh, you can't see, hold on. See, I knew it would do this. Hold on. Give me 1 moment. It's doing its thing. Come back to me, Lamento. You can do it. I believe in you. Sorry, it's having one of its glitches again. Let's try. Sorry, gamers. Give me 1 second. Technical difficulties. This is known for its technical difficulties. It just does this sometimes. Let me try close out and restart. Typically when this happens, I just have to close out of the game and restart it. Yep, there we go. Oh, unless it's gonna white screen me again. All right, hold on. No, don't do this. Oh no, that's so bad. Oh shit. Oh no, 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 no. This is the worst. Please don't make me restart my computer. Fuck. Oh my god, technical difficulties, y'all. Lamento is a great game, I promise. Okay, hold on. I'll be right back.